In Bhakti, we like to sing a little. Singing does something to the mind. Sort of just calms out the mind. Actually, the word mantra means it sort of delivers the mind. And I think it's safe to say that most of our pain is not physical. It's mental. Anyone agree with that? Say aye. Yeah, I think so. Even when I got a physical pain, it's more in my mind. Like, what am I going to do now? It's got nothing to do with the pain in the hand. It's just like I've created it bigger. I'm going to let Paramananda sing because my voice all shredded.
All right. If you're not used to singing in public, please sing anyway.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your voice. It has to do with your heart. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nice and sweet. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare. One more time together. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai.
Besides the love in the food, there's also love in song. One of the healthier things you could do for your life is sing. A very, very narrow concept of what health is in the West. So anyway, these gifts were brought, the teachings of mantras and the teachings of not just cooking with love, but truthfully, the whole theory of bhakti is everything that we have, we do with a loving sentiment, more as an offering. I remember one time I was just coming to the temple. There was a temple in Brooklyn. And this was at a point where I started to really sort of like, this makes sense. It's not just sort of exotic. It actually makes sense. And so I had a mentor, a person that I really looked up to, that he shared with me about, and I was still in the band Youth of Today at the time. And he shared with me about everything. Every time I'd see him, I'd ask him questions. I'd go every morning at 7 a.m. I'd go to the morning service they had, and then we'd sit and we'd eat breakfast together. It was just like a beautiful relationship. It was a sanctified relationship I had with him. And we always kept it very, very high level. And he knew I was a musician, and he always encouraged me to do music with devotion and not to give up music. And then one day he asked me something very out of character, which he said, "What kind of guitar does your guitar player play?" I thought this was a weird question to be asking. We always we never talk about music or anything. We always just talk about spiritual things. And I said, he plays a Gibson Les Paul. Why do you ask? He said, well, I used to play it. I used to play guitar. That's why I'm asking. I said, what do you mean you used to? He said, well, I used to play it for me, the guitar was Maya. Has anybody ever heard that term, Maya? Maya means sort of like troublesome or illusion. It causes you to be in illusion. So he said for him, the guitar was Maya. I said, what do you mean it's Maya? I thought, because I just read the Bhagavad Gita, and you teach me so many things. You teach me that everything is ultimately coming from God. How can it be Maya? You tell me to take music and use it in a spiritual way. And that's really helped me. He said, yeah, you should. Keep doing that. But for me, the guitar was Maya. And I said, but then you're not speaking the truth. You tell me one thing, but you're doing the other. You're giving up the guitar. Music is ultimately coming from God. Why can't I do it? He said, you can do it. But for me, the guitar was Maya. And I kept arguing this point with him because he wouldn't concede. And so finally he just said, okay, next time you're on stage, see if you're doing it in service to God or to be God. And that little statement sort of changed everything for me. Am I doing this to be God or to serve God? Matter of fact, that little statement changed the way I parent my kids, the way I have relationships with friends, the way I have a relationship with my wife, in the workplace. It's like, am I doing this to sort of be the important center of attention? Or do I see some way to do this activity, not for my ego, but as an offering? And so the whole path of bhakti is to shed the thing that causes the greatest pain in our life, which is the ego. Does anybody have any questions? I think we're just going to open this up to any questions about the band and what it was, perhaps what it was like in the band or touring the band or etc. Anybody have any burning questions? And what's your name again?
Harold.
Harold. Shoot.
I have a question. You were telling me that in the early 80s, the young kid Harley was speaking to you and sort of, this is the first time that you had heard of these,
First time I ever heard anything about.
First time that you heard of these teachings. And when you had left Youth of Today in the early 90s, did you leave with your friend PorcelI, or how did
I had left before he, a few years earlier.
And how did the relationship of you spreading your knowledge to him, or did you grow it from someone else as well?
I don't think he got it from my well. Well, I don't know. I think we were sort of like, I'm not proud of it. I literally walked away from everyone and family that I knew. You know, sometimes alcoholics have to do a similar thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes alcoholics go to a bar and alcohol becomes so strong it takes over their life. And so when they go to a 12-step meeting, they make some commitments that I don't go to bars anymore. Even if you were to say, well, what's the big deal? We're just going to have a lemonade. Can't we just sit in a bar and talk? They say, no, I don't go to bars. They just draw a line in the sand. So for me, there were so many sort of subtle things that were pulling me and keeping me at a place where I didn't want to be, that I thought, you know what, I don't want to be this person anymore. I'm going to reinvent myself. And part of it was like, and PorcelI was his regular name. Paramananda is his devotee name. It was I didn't think he was a bad person. I just wanted to but I did want to cut myself from all my old relations. I mean, come on, you guys ever had that feeling like I need to isolate myself? Anyway, that was my strong calling. How was your...
I did the same exact thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even tell my parents where I went. One day, I was in Bhagavatam class, and one of the senior ladies comes out of the temple room, and she says, Dr. PorcelI, you have a phone call. I was like, a phone call? I'm at this like Krishna farm in the middle of nowhere. I was like, a phone call? She goes, yeah, it's your dad. I was like, oh boy. He finally caught up.
I had to tell your dad you're a card-carrying Hare Krishna.
But you know, I think it was a lot different back then. You know, back then, almost to get this stuff, you had to move into the temple. You had to really make this big-time commitment, which isn't really the way it is now. I think more people just kind of come gradually, and due to places like this Prabhu has started, people don't have to do that. They can just come and they can learn, and they don't have to make such a drastic thing where they shave their heads. But I think when It was just a different time.
It was a different time, I think, in the history of Krishna Bhakti in the West. Now it's much more of a community-oriented thing rather than a bunch of monks. Although if people want, I mean, sometimes I have students that say, I want to be a monk. And I don't even know where to really even send them because there's not many great monasteries around. You know, running a temple is like running a business. You have to be like very organized and stuff like that. If it's disorganized, you have what everybody hates more than organized religion is disorganized religion.
Those early days, Hare Krishna movement was not well accepted by the society, and as time went by, more and more people joined, and now it's very commonly accepted and also got a better reputation.
Well, now I teach everything I taught in shelter. I teach in the yoga community. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I will say, Bhakti, it's huge. Like where it was weird and freaky, and you'd go to a hardcore show and debate with a bunch of atheists. Now it's like it's massive. Bhakti, kirtan, everything we did in the '90s now is huge. It's unbelievable. It's like everybody wants it.
The biggest yoga festival in the country is called Bhakti Fest.
I know,
it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Bhakti's cool.
Bhakti's cool. It's the new black. Bhakti's the new black is our new hashtag. So yeah, does that answer your question? So yeah, we split and went our own ways, and then he ended up rejoining, and then Shelter had already formed, and then he just fit into Shelter.
You know, it's kind of an interesting story how I joined Shelter, because I was on that Krishna farm. I'd been on the farm for 4 months. I was farming, milking cows, working in the cow barn. It was just, I was like this, Lower East Side punk rock musician. I couldn't even put gas in a gas tank, moving to this farm and, being in charge of this whole herd of cows. So I was doing that for a few months, and I had quit hardcore. I had absolutely no desire whatsoever to play music ever again.
This is when you were in Judge, right?
This is when I quit Judge, I quit music, and I had moved to this Krishna farm.
I was in India at the time. So
He didn't even know that I moved. So it's hard to imagine, because this was before cell phones. But there was only one phone at the farm, and everybody was just out working, so no one ever answered the phone. So he kept on trying to. So he was looking for a guitar player for Shelter, and I guess there was a hardcore kid at the temple that said, "Hey, why don't you get Purcell? He's a Krishna devotee now. He's living at that farm." He was like, "What?" So he kept on trying to call to see if I was really living at that temple, but no one was picking up the phone. And finally someone picked up the phone, but they didn't know my name. And they said cryptically, "Oh yeah, we got a new bhakti. He kind of looks like you." So just on the strength of that, him and Shelter made the road trip all the way to this farm. So one day I'm literally in the barn, and I have a shovel, and I'm literally shoveling cow manure into this truck. And they all walked in. I had no idea that they were even coming. And I was like, "Oh my God, Raghunath, how's it going?"
And we're like, "You're leaving the farm."
Yeah, so the first thing he said is, he goes, "This is so great. I found you. You're a devotee now. Come on back to Philadelphia. We're going to do Shelter. This is going to be awesome." And I said, "No way." Like, I was just so burnt out from hardcore and the Lower East Side and CBGBs and gangs coming after me with knives. I was just like, there's no way I'm going to do hardcore again. I just said, forget it. And, I was a brand new bhakta. I really didn't know much about the philosophy. And so Raghunath, who had read the Bhagavad Gita before, he said, "You know what? This really isn't our philosophy. This is kind of like a false renunciation." And he said, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna also wanted to leave the battle. Arjuna was a great warrior. Now, Arjuna was such a good warrior that there was these bad guys on the other side that were literally going to take over the planet. They were going to exploit the planet. They were horrible, murderous, terrible people. And they were going to come into power. And they were also very strong warriors. So Arjuna was in this unique position that he could actually defeat them, and his own brother was like the most righteous, gentle, dharmic person in the world. So Krishna explained to him, he said, what should you do? Should you just run off and just allow these people to take over and everybody's going to suffer? Or you're a warrior. That's what you were born to do. That's what you're good at. You should do what you're good at, but you should do it in a righteous way. And so he said to me, he said, PorcelI, let's face it, you're no farmer. And truth be told, I was probably the worst farmer ever known to, like I didn't grow up at a farm. I didn't know what I was doing. It wasn't like, I probably wouldn't have lasted very long on that farm. But he said, you know what you're good at? You're good at playing guitar. You're good at talking to people. You're good at communicating things to people. So you don't need to give that up. If you give that up, you're just doing that for a false reason. You should do the things that come naturally to you, and you should do what you're good at, but you just take those things and you make them an offering to other people.
Everyone in this room has some type of talent. And sometimes our talented things make us sad. And so the art of bhakti is taking what you have and you do it in a spiritual way as an offering. We don't do it for ego. And the analogy that's used is like electricity. It's not like electricity is bad, but if my little son, like when my son was little, he used to just reach up on the counter, grab a fork, and then he'd go right looking for the electric outlets. He'd just go right, but we had them all sealed up so he couldn't get to them. But it's like it fits almost like that fork fits right in that hole, doesn't it? And so electricity in that case is problematic. But electricity is also used to light up this room today, light up a city. So it's not like electricity, the energy of electricity is good or bad. It's how we're going to use it. And in the same way, there is a talent that we have. And your talent, or your stuff, so to speak, some people are very wealthy, some people are very clever, some people can make $1 million out of nothing. Whatever talent you have in this world, artistic talent or musical talent, it's not good or bad. It depends how you use it. And how you use it will actually help you heal what's ever broken in you, will help you evolve, will help you grow, or it will complicate your life incredibly. So yoga is the art, and especially bhakti yoga, is the art of taking what you have and using it so you feel grounded with it. So obviously me and PorcelI, we're not doing that. We are getting caught up in because what we did is we didn't give up music. We took that same energy, but we sort of did it in a more controlled way. And the very thing that was causing us some type of pain, music. And why was it causing pain? We were famous, we were respected, we got appropriate accolades and validation from the community. We put out records, we got to tour those records, we got to produce our own records. It was because there's subtle energy in fame and power that can make you sad. And if anyone's had fame or power, they know that's true. That's why famous and powerful people become drug addicts, commit suicide. It's not just like fame and power are the goal. It's just an energy. And if that energy isn't used in a healthy way, it burns you down in the same way electricity can start a forest fire. Any other questions? Come on, you came to a shelter thing here. What's your name?